Talking about football, Commanders, what was their biggest loss, biggest gain this offseason? Start looking at some of the losses of guys that have no longer going to be with this team. You think about John Allen moving on. I think he's up there for the biggest loss. I think Jeremy Chin would factor in there. Who do you think is their biggest loss? I don't know.
I don't know if I could call someone the biggest loss.
Well, and I don't know if I like John. John was a solid player for a long time. I don't know that the last couple of years if he's been as impactful as some people thought he was.
He would have to be the biggest loss until but no, I can't call it the biggest loss because I'll say this. They let him go knowing what they had. And I really believe, as JP has stated many times, they want Newton to get on the field and have more opportunity, more time. And they feel he could be as effective. So I don't know if it's a loss when you have planned for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But until you see Newton play at a higher consistent level, you have to say John was. I know some people may say Chin, but he was good. I think we can get the same thing from the kid that just came from New Orleans.
Yeah, Will Harris.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think it's John just because of the number of snaps that he played. And even though he's maybe not what you were asking for in terms of what he's being paid, he's still probably a more impactful player overall than just about anybody else they lost. I think they can replace him, though, right? Like, I think Johnny Newton steps in there and plays well. How much do you think for Johnny Newton last year, being injured at the beginning of the season, having those surgeries, getting a late start to training camp, and then getting in there a little bit later, how much do you think that affected his season?
Did affect him a lot. I mean, I can't put a number on it, but I'm sure it affected a lot because the one thing about the NFL is when you come in, you want to hit the ground running and be hitting your best. But you're a guy who coming in to learn this game for the first time, and all people you're competing against, they've been doing it. And now when you step in, they're in game shape. You're working yourself into it. And then you try to come and you get a little setback. And you get back on the field. When he was healthy, you saw what he's capable of. But then he has to go through that hitting the wall. Hit that point where you learn what your body can take, and then you come over the hump. So it had to affect him tremendously.
Yeah, and I feel like that's an important pick for Adam Peters to get right because it was a position that they didn't need necessarily because they had Allen and Payne. Obviously, they might have had plans already when they saw him fall there and they were able to pick him that they were going to move off of John Allen. So now it's suddenly more of a need than it was. But that was kind of a luxury pick of sorts. And you kind of need, when you go best player available there versus maybe a position that you could have fill in, kind of need that guy to work out. So I'm intrigued to see what he does this season. I would say overall that his first season wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be, but he did show some flashes. What do you think for biggest addition? I think for me, it's got to be Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question because you get the franchise left tackle to protect your quarterback for the next 4 or 5 seasons, right? Like you feel good giving up the picks. You feel fine doing that because those sorts of dudes don't become available very often. And I don't know how many people around the league even knew that Laramie Tunsil was available.
I think that's the biggest one because the thing about what the NFL has changed to now, for years it was like get the best offensive lineman, offensive tackle, best right tackle, get the best right guard or one of the best, or best center, best left guard, best left tackle. Dallas started to do this thing some years ago where get the best 5 people on the field because most offensive linemen can play more than one position. So if you got a guy who could play tackle, left tackle, and you end up putting him on your right side, he's better. Let's say your left tackle, your backup left tackle is better than your right tackle. Why not get him on the field?
Mm-hmm.
What if your right tackle can play guard better than the guy you got playing guard? Move him to guard. And then you get the best 5 people on the field, and then your offense can move a lot better. I believe what Tunsil has allowed was he's over there. You can not worry about that side. Now you get Coleman to be able to move to another position. Coleman proved last year he's capable. And he's one of your best linemen. He's on the field now. Instead of having a guy backing up somebody sitting on the sideline, he's on the field effectively playing.
Yeah, and so I listened to Daniel Jeremiah on his podcast, and they talk about the offensive line theory being you either need 3 or 4 good ones, and you just can't have a tomato can, as they call him, just a dude who's a pushover, right? And I think when you look at where this offensive line is going to be when they're all healthy, and I don't know when to expect Sam Cosmi back. I personally, anytime before week 10 to me is great because that's around the 9-month mark. If he comes back around that time frame, I'm fine. If he comes back earlier, great.
Mhm.
But I don't want to count on him earlier than that and feel like it's a setback if he doesn't make it back by then. But when you look at what this line is when they're all healthy, you feel good about Tunsil.
Mhm.
You feel good about Biotish. You feel
Allegretti.
good about, and I think he's
I
kind
like
of.
Allegretti.
I'm more in the middle on him.
I
But
think he's nasty, dude.
you look at Cosme at right guard, and you look at Coleman wherever you're going to line him up. That's 4, and if you
Yeah.
like Allegretti, that's 5.
Yeah.
Right, like suddenly you feel good about this offensive line
You
when
still
it's been
got
a problem
Wally who
for
could play right guard for you until Cosme come back.
yeah, and I think that gives you versatility, right? You've got guys who are versatile, and I think at a position like left tackle, I don't want a guy who's just okay over there,
Nah,
right? Like I want a guy who's good,
and be special.
and I think that's the thing. Like you talked about Brandon Coleman, I think he's fine over there. I don't
Mhm.
know that he's special. I don't know that he's great. He's a good offensive lineman. If
Yeah.
you move him around and move him to other places, I don't know that he's great over there. Getting a guy like Tunsil now allows Brandon Coleman to be even better.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a lot of sense for the offense. I think the other offensive addition, Deebo Samuel. What are your expectations for him this year? Because for me, I
For
think
Deebo,
yeah. So if we look back at last year's numbers real quick and exactly what he did, because that's kind of what I'm expecting. And frankly, for a 5th-round pick, you have to factor in the contract, which is around 17 million guaranteed, maybe up to 20 million. He gave you 670 yards through the air on 51 catches, and then on the ground, he ran the ball 42 times for 136 yards, so 806 yards from scrimmage. That's kind of what I would pencil him in for. A couple of years ago, he went for 1,700. I don't expect that.
I'm
Two
expecting at least 1,000
Okay,
from scrimmage.
2 years ago, he was at 1,100.
But my expectation is this: health. If he stays healthy, he'll get the numbers he needs to get.
Well, and what do you see the role as? Is it simply like, here's the screens, here's everything else? Do you see them trying to do a little bit extra stuff? Like, what do you envision that
I
role
see
as?
him being a guy who can do the screens and do the crossing routes and things of that nature. I don't see him as a guy that's gonna run inside the tackles very much, as often as they did in San Fran. San Fran starts with a run first offense, so you have to use him that way.
Mm-hmm.
This is this offense. You run it, but you pass it. You want to get advantages.
It's RPOs, right?
So,
Everything's got an option.
but you want to get advantages. And I think Deebo on the edges against cornerbacks and some other DBs is an advantage. Line him up in the backfield. Who's checking him now? A linebacker. He goes in motion. Linebacker has to go with him, or a safety comes down to go with him. You have now allowed yourself. There's not a safety in the middle of the field now. You got an advantage on the backside with possibly Terry or someone else. You have still the safety or the linebacker is not checking Deebo one-on-one. So you can use him in different ways. I just don't see them running him inside the tackles as much as San Fran did.
Yeah, and I think that's smart, right? If you talk about the big thing being health, then don't run him between the tackles. He's not a running back. Like he's versatile. He's a very interesting piece. He's not a true running back. Don't run him between the tackles. We've talked plenty about the guys that came back from the team last year: Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, John Bates. How big of a signing do you think that was to bring him back? A guy he's not going to catch a lot of footballs for you, and he's not maybe noticeable to the average fan, but he's very impactful in the blocking.
But
game.
People look at a tight end and they immediately think about Kelsey and Gonzalez from back in the day, and people like that. But in this offense, yes, you have Ertz, but you also need a guy who's going to block. The thing that people I think don't see about Cliff's offense, they want to run the football. They want to establish a run. And Bates is a guy who can do that. Now, I will say this. He needs to be in the offseason working more on his skills as a pass route guy, because you know what people do? They don't check him. They let him flee. So he can be a guy who you can have a run pass situation where he's blocking, boom, release, he's wide open. He get the ball. All you got to do is stumble up the field. You get the 5 to 7, 10 yards, you get that, and you're moving the chains. So I would say for anybody when you are blocking tight end, make sure you can catch. Make sure you can run routes. Just make yourself available. He's 6'5", 6'6". Put your hands up. The quarterback can see you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to talk defensive side of the ball here in the next segment, but for him, last year, 8 catches for 84 yards. I'd have to see if I can find a breakdown.
That's 10 a carry.
Well,
10 a catch.
I'd have to see
get
a breakdown.
20, get 25.
How many of those were in the fourth quarter when all game long he's been blocking And here we come in the fourth quarter. We're on a play action going to the right, and he's leaking out to the left
The,
and wide open.
the thing you have to do is make yourself to coaches available. And if he starts doing more in practice, the coach will design a play for you. Because what the defense sees is, oh, he blocks all the time. So you go in the game, they automatically assume block. They forget about you. Fake block, boom, get hit, you're going up the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect counter, right?
So,
Everybody's
yes.
expecting you to be blocking for a run play for this.
But
all of
the
a sudden
coach
you
has
leak out.
to know you can do it.
Yeah.
So right now, they haven't reported yet. He should be working on all that stuff. Should have been working on it. But he should be definitely working on it now. Come into camp and say, Coach, added something to my play. Like, you look at guys in sports like Michael Jordan and LeBron, them, what do they come back with every year? They're already great. It still brings something else, something new to their repertoire. He needs to do that as well to let them know we have more ways to use this dude.